Good morning, YouTube. I am Bearded Ink, and today we have a very special tutorial for you. As you can see from the title above my head, we now have shoutouts on YouTube with Streamer.Bot. Now, I'm super excited about this. Obviously, this has been a long requested feature and one that has been hit or miss in the past. But we figured out how to do this on my live stream this past Saturday. We worked through it. We did a lot of testing. We did a lot of document reading. We did a lot of back and forth. I used the community there to help me out with the testing and populating of variables and things. And we finally got it working. We got it cleaned up. And now I'm going to bring it to you. So before we get into all of the how-tos and why nots and what we should do and why we do them for this, I just want to explain a few things. First off, this is a set and forget type of shout out. Once you have it set up, you won't be required to do anything else other than type your shout out command. But the one drawback, well, there's two drawbacks to it currently. The first one, the most major one, is before you can shout somebody out, they have to type a single message in your chat while you're live. If they have not chatted ever in your chat, or since you set this command up, they will not have the proper variables populated. So once they chat, though, and it doesn't matter what they chat, any message that they send to your chat will populate the variables that we're going to set up. And from that moment on, you can shout them out forever, whether they're present in your chat or not. But that's the one drawback. So you can't shout out like your best friend if they haven't chatted in your live stream since you set this up. The second caveat, as we all know, YouTube does not parse their emote shortcuts unless you are actually actively typing in the chat box on the YouTube website. So if you're chatting through your chat doc in OBS or through the chat window in Streamer.Bot here, the emotes do not parse and they will not show up. So if you have a shout out command and a message in chat and you want it to have emotes, that's not going to be possible. I am working my brain to try to figure out how we can make that happen. But for now, that is a limitation on YouTube's end. So it is just not really possible. But beyond that, once you have this set up, really how you present your shout outs, whether it just be a simple message in chat or have things trigger off and show on screen like with OBS or whatever, that's completely up to you. I'm going to give you the basic tools and then we will let you see what you can do with it from there. And I'm super excited to see what you do with it. The second thing is why this took so long to come about. Frankly, I don't know. I don't know. There are a lot of people that run Streamer.Bot that are a whole lot smarter than I am. And I know that there was a version of a shout out in Streamer.Bot version 1.5. It came out, there was a video, it had a C# code, and you could import this code, and then you would have a little C# execution that would do the parsing of the variables and the channel IDs and all that for you. And then you could do your shout outs with that. But that only lasted like a month. I think it broke after version 1.6. It wasn't working anymore. I did test it. I downloaded a version of 1.5 to import the code into, upgraded that to 2.0, upgraded that to 2.4, made sure I rewrote a couple of the lines to make sure that it would compile with the 2.4. It did. I exported it, imported it into my current version of Streamer.Bot 2.4, and it still didn't work. So I came up with a method to do this using only variables and only commands without C#, without API calls, without any of that extra crap. So anybody can do this, even you. If I can do it, you can do it. And it's really great. It's really simple, and the mechanics of it are far easier than I thought they would be. It just took a little bit of finagling and thinking. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to do that now. We're going to set up the shout out and we're going to make the shout out command and then you'll be good to go. All right. So let's go ahead and stop wasting time. Bearded, show me how to do it. Let's get into it right now. Here we go. Okay. So here I have my version of Streamer.Bot. Now this is the version I have for my specific YouTube channel. I have a separate Streamer.Bot that I use for Twitch, but this one, so it doesn't have a whole lot in it, which is great because we can make things and you don't get all confused and lost by looking at tons of actions and sub actions. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up the shout out command. And what I mean by setup is we're going to have an action that populates specific variables for us. So let's go ahead and get in there. Let me just zoom in here so you can see what we're doing. We're going to create a new one. So follow along, open up your Streamer.Bot and follow along. We're going to click on add here and you can name this whatever you want, but I just named this the SO for shout out and then set up. And then I'm going to give this a group. This is going to be my moderation group because it is a moderator thing. And then we're going to click OK. And now we have it up here. Make sure that it's highlighted. We're going to go right into the sub actions. This one is only going to have 2 sub actions. That's all we need. 2 sub actions and a trigger. So what we have to do is we have to populate global variables when the user chats in our chat. And this is what's going to give us the variables that we need for the shout out. So we have to create these variables in such a way that it works with YouTube. Now, if you are familiar with YouTube and Twitch, you know that Twitch has the target user action variable, not action. It has the target user variable that gets populated. You can use the get user info from who redeemed or from input, and it'll populate target users. So you can actually type in a word after your command, and that is the target user. So if you do on Twitch, for example, if you do !SO and then a space and then somebody's username, that username becomes the target user and populates the target user variable. On YouTube, it does not work that way. YouTube populates the variables beforehand when we connect and when the user chats in our chat. So we don't have the need on the YouTube side for those get target info from user or from broadcaster or from, and that's not even an option in the sub actions here on the YouTube side. So we have to work around that. We have to create a variable, but we have to create the variable in a way that we can recall it with the correct person that we are doing the shout out for. So the first thing we have to do is we have to set a global variable. So we're going to right click on the sub actions here. We're going to come down to core. We're going to come all the way down to globals and then of course global set, because we are setting these actions or these variables. So you're going to get the set global variable pop up here. It looks just like this. And we don't have to do a whole lot here, which is great. We're going to leave it on global. Now here's the user target. But again, the target user is never defined in YouTube. So we can't use that. And this is, I think, the biggest drawback and why shout outs have been failing on YouTube side for so long. But we're just going to make a global. And it's going to be persisted. So this is very important. This is why it's important to have it persisted, because when that person comes into your chat for the first time and they type a message, it will populate these variables that we're creating now. And because they're persisted, they will stay there forever, right? Unless you manually delete them. So once they chat in your chat, you can then shout them out from that moment forward forever, whether they're there or not. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to not only create this variable, but we have to have a way that when we try to call this variable, we call it based on who we're shouting out. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to populate this variable using their username and then set that to a variable. So we're actually going to use a variable inside the variable name, which is going to be, we're going to do %, user, %. Now this is a variable inside the variable name, and this variable will be populated with that user's name. So if Bearded Ink chats in your chat, this would populate with Bearded Ink. But then we have to give it a second variable name so that it doesn't overwrite. Okay, so we're going to just use X user, just like this. So it's going to be percentage user percentage X user, no spaces, all one word, just like you see there. We're going to leave this on argument because we are going to set the variable name based on the argument here, and that argument is going to be user. And so basically when YouTube populates the user with whoever's name that is, so if Bearded Ink types in your chat, Bearded Ink is the user, it will populate Bearded Ink for this variable here. Okay, so then we're just going to click OK. Now the fun part with this is we don't have to do all of this all over again. We just need to duplicate. So we're going to right click on that sub action. We're going to come down here and click duplicate sub action. Then we're going to come back up here and double click on the new one. And all we're going to do is add a capital I, lowercase d, ID. Okay, and we're going to do that for both the variable name and the argument, capital I, lowercase d, because the user ID variable that gets populated on the YouTube side is the person's actual channel ID. And this is going to be where we can make the clickable link for that person. So we're going to again populate the username with their username, and then the user ID is going to populate this variable. So you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So now that we have these two here, we need to set this up so that it actually triggers to fill the variable when they chat. And the only way, or the best way to do that, is to use a first words trigger. So we're going to come up in triggers. We're going to right click. We're going to go to YouTube. We're going to go to chat and then first words. And basically all this means is the first time that they chat in your chat, it will populate these variables, right? Well, it will trigger this action, which populates these variables. We're going to leave the username input field blank. We are not going to check the user ID box. We're going to leave it completely as it is and just click OK. That's it. So this means now it is going to populate or run this action, which will populate these two variables the first time somebody speaks in your chat. Okay. Now, this is what is very important, though. If you come over to the Platforms tab and then you click on Settings, you will see that there is a first words here, and it has an auto reset cache of 12 hours. This needs to be reset every time you go live. Okay, so you can either come in here and manually click reset before you go live, or you can set up a start action like I have on mine here when I start streaming. So like on our right hand, we can come down here, we can go to settings and then reset first words. And now that'll automatically reset. But whether you do it manually or set it up to like a command or when a trigger for when you click start streaming on OBS, whatever, I leave that up to you. I'm just going to do it manually. So, okay. So we have our first words. And when the first words comes in, when they chat, it's going to run this action, which will set the user, X user, and user, X user ID to their user and user ID. And what this is going to look like is this. So here we have ARD edits X user and ARD edits X user ID, and then it's populated with their username and their channel ID. Same thing with Assorted Marbles, of course, with me, Bearded Ink, Kleina Conan, Metric Imperial, my robot even got in there. So these are all of their names and all of their channel IDs for that person, right? So these will never be overwritten until this person types in chat again for the first time, like on the next time you go live. But the only way it'll be overwritten is by this actual user. So if somebody happens to change their channel ID but keep their name, this will automatically update for you. Likewise, if they change their name, it will create a new variable with their new username. So even if you shout out their new username, it will still actually populate their user ID as well. So no matter if somebody changes their name, changes how it appears, just changes the display name or even their channel ID, you will always have the latest. So when you do a shout out for that person, it will populate correctly. All right, that's all the setup we need to do. So now we can actually make the shout out command. And this one is going to have 3 sub actions. So we're going to come in here, we're going to right click, we're going to add, and this one is going to just be called the shout out, because that's what we're making is the shout out command. I'm going to go ahead and drop it in my moderation group, and then we're going to click OK. So now we have it here. Make sure that it's highlighted, and we're going to go to the sub actions. Now we set those global variables with the setup. Now we need to recall those variables and populate a new variable so that we can use them in a chat message. Okay, so the first thing we need to do now is, instead of setting a global, we need to get a global. So we're going to do that by coming in here to core, again down to globals, and then of course to global get, right? Instead of set, we're getting the variable now, and you're going to be met with this pop-up, this lovely little thing here. If my mouse follow will play along. But this one is going to work just slightly different. And this is where the magic comes in, because we have to not only tell the bot which variable to populate, but we have to be able to change it by just typing in !shout out and then the username. Now, because there is no target user, if you did shout out Bearded Ink, it would still populate the user and the user ID, but it would populate it with your user and user ID because you're the one that sent the message. So these variables, or these global variable gets, will tell it, no, don't do that. Pull these variables that match the name instead. And since we can't use target user, we're going to use raw input. Okay, so we're going to do a % raw input. Now this is INPUT with a capital I %. So make sure that you have it's camel case, raw input. The only capital letter is the capital letter I. And then without a space after the %, we're going to do X user. Okay, so this is the same thing like you did before with the user X user, but now we're telling it raw input because this will be populated with whatever we type in chat. The destination variable now, it needs to be a little bit different. And this is the variable that we're going to use when we do our message. So I just use Y user, right? So we have X user and Y user. The default value, we leave blank. We don't worry about it. Leave it alone as is. And we're going to click OK. And then just like before, we don't have to do all that again. We can just right click and duplicate. And then we're going to double click in here. And then you guessed it, capital I, lowercase d, capital I, lowercase d. So we have raw input X user ID, and then the destination variable is Y user ID. Okay. And then we're going to click OK. So what these two do now is whatever we type in becomes raw input. So when we do shout out Bearded Ink is the raw input. And then it's going to look for Bearded Ink X user. And as we saw before, there's a Bearded Ink X user there. And then that value is Bearded Ink. And that's what it's going to pull. And then it's going to put the value, which in this case would be Bearded Ink, into a new variable called Y user. And then it's going to take the user ID and put that into Y user ID. So now we can send our message to YouTube. So we can come down to YouTube, send message to channel. We can leave it to your bot account or your broadcaster account, whichever you prefer. It doesn't matter. Leave it to broadcast all unless you're doing multiples and you only want to do the latest, or if you're doing from the variable, I leave it at all because I only monitor one broadcast at a time. My message then would be, please show support for, and then we're going to % Y user, remember, because we changed our variable that we got and we populated with it with Y user. Please show our support for Y user by subscribing to their channel at, and then the address, we're just going to type in manually and use the Y user ID variable at the very end. So it's https youtube.com//channel/%y user capital ID %. Just like that. So our message then would be populated with Bearded Ink or whatever name we typed in the shout out for the Y user, and then our channel ID in the place of the Y user ID in that address. So all I do now is click OK. And then the last thing you have to do is give it a trigger. So we're going to make a command. So we're going to go down to core commands, command triggered. We're going to create a new command. We're going to call this one shout out. And we're going to give it a command of !SO. And then I only want moderators to be able to use this. So I'm going to go ahead and click moderators into my allowed list. And then of course, check my YouTube message, uncheck the Twitch message, and then click OK. Click OK on the verify that it's there. And now our trigger is there. Our commands are there. We're populating variables when the person chats in our chat. And then when we go to shout that person out, we're pulling the information from those variables and populating the message. Now, of course, if you want to get super fancy with this, you can add OBS stuff like setting source visibility states to visible to show their user profile, or a welcome message, or even show a clip of theirs or something like that. Whatever you would like to do in that regard. But that's it. It's that simple, right? 5 sub actions, 2 actions, 2 triggers, and now we have shout outs on YouTube. So very simple. I honestly, it took me a couple of hours to figure out the get and set variables correctly, but now we have it. So no matter what their username is at the time, their display name doesn't have to match their channel point or their channel point. It doesn't have to match their channel name. It can be changed if they decide to change it in the future, and none of that matters. So as long as they've chatted in your chat, you can give them a shout out now with this very simple command. I hope that it has helped you. I hope that you are excited about it as I am, and I cannot wait to see how you use this and use the shout out action and the sub actions to import or to show other things, so, on OBS or on your screen, or other messages in your chat. Like I said, basically now you have the shout outs, the sky's the limit. So make a scene change or do something very, showmanship with it. And let me know in the comments below, how you plan to use it. If you're going to use it just as I have it set up here, or if you're going to do something extravagant. I'd love to hear your ideas, and I'm sure the rest of the community would as well. If this video was nice and helped you out any, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hi, welcome in. I'm Bearded Ink. I'm glad to have you here. But if you found everything useful and you want to learn more and know when I post new tutorials or when I go live every Saturday, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and then turn the notifications on, and you will be alerted anytime I post anything new. And then thank you. Hi, welcome to the family. Glad to have you. Pull up a chair. We have cookies over there. But yeah, if you did find something very useful or something that you liked in this video, please let me know in the comments below. I love hearing the good comments. They make me feel good. And again, if you didn't like the video, or there is something you didn't like about the video and you feel like it deserves a thumbs down, go ahead and give it a thumbs down, right? But all I ask, and this is very important, if you decide to give this video a thumbs down, or any of my videos a thumbs down, that's fine. It hurts a little bit, but all I ask is that if you give me a thumbs down, please leave a comment to let me know why you gave me a thumbs down, because I don't want to keep making the same mistake over and over. If I'm doing something wrong or something that, a lot of people don't like, I want to be able to correct that. So let me know why it deserved the thumbs down, so that moving forward, my tutorials will get even better. And the last thing I really want to say before we get out of here is, Nate, thank you so much for making Streamer.Bot. You are incredible. But dark mode. Dark mode. Okay? That's all. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. Again, I hope that the shout out thing has helped you. I know it's going to help me tremendously. And now I get to go work on making clips for YouTube and parsing emotes in our messages. So hopefully I can have 2 new tutorials for us to get over some of these biggest hurdles that YouTube is coming up lacking on. But until then, we're stuck with this stuff right here. So hopefully you get a lot of use out of this. And again, thank you for being here and thank you for watching. We love you all. We'll see you next time. And until then, love, peace, and chicken grease.